You just tuned into a Better Black America TV on YouTube. So there's been a debate over the last few weeks, okay, with Trump's big, beautiful bill. And I've been on the side of breaking down trickle down, okay, trickle down economics, which literally introduced to us by Reagan during the Reaganomics era. So now, I've been done with the task of pretty much making the trickle down theory a theorem, and it's proven. Broke the code, broke the cycle, because on viral videos on the channel, just Google my name, Bushaun Glover, and B-U-Shaun, get all my YouTube, my Instagram, and all of that, and they are verified accounts. So it is me. But, the debate, the trickle down economics is no longer theory, it is a theorem, and I'm going to prove to you today for the final time why the trickle down effect has not worked. And when I say has not worked, doesn't mean that it's not real. It doesn't mean that it's not something that will change the trajectory of the future or the economic status of Americans. We've been dealing with a whole bunch of things that's been blocking and being in the way. So it's perfect timing to have the conversation, because the trickle down has always worked, but there has been situations where, the tear down, just like right now, okay, here in beautiful, sunny Southern California, they're classifying downtown Los Angeles, riots, but I don't see it as riots. I see it as disturbance and protesting. And the sad part about it is our constitutional right is to, protest peacefully. But peace is the last thing that these agitators are doing. You got individuals, that's organizations that's out there protesting, the immigrants being deported, protesting the raids, and they're doing it in a fashion, a part of America. But then you have these individuals that come into play. I'm speaking on the LA raid riots, coming to the areas like they've been summoned, pretty much cause chaos and mayhem. And on Thursday and Friday, looking at the protests, just peacefully protesting, just a few hundred people. But then somehow the word went out. And when that word, it basically, they went on and got the professional agitators, the Antifas, and, the people that was with the George Floyd riots and all that. But one thing that pretty much has stood down during these so-called LA protests, and some people are saying riots, the LBGT movement has stepped down. They're not even participating. The NAACP has stepped down. They're not participating. And Black Lives Matter has stepped down, and they are not participating. So does Latino lives matter? But when you look at proactive versus reactive, okay, now the president of the federal government is at odds and cahoots with local government in terms of Mayor Karen Bass, as well as the state, which is the governor Gavin Newsom, because these ICE raids are either being surprise attacks. Because when you come into a state, when you come into a city, I would think you would notify the mayor, you would notify the governor. And Mayor Bass is either 100% in the dark of these incidences and does not know what's going on, have no clue, but that's not fair to the mayor, or she is 100% with what's really going on and she just pretty much playing the game. But you can actually see from yesterday or the day before to today, her tone has changed, because when you sit back and say, Constitution, we can peacefully protest, and then you're seeing the vandalism, the facing of federal buildings and all of the things that's going on, you have to ask yourself, what's really going on? Why state and the local government working together with the federal government, meaning the president of the United States? Because intelligence is one thing. Now, if you don't think that the intelligence, meaning that there's not precursors as to, civil disturbances or not riots, but protesting that turns into riots, because there's no such thing as a peaceful protest. It can't be, because somehow, some way, it does not turn out peaceful. The time you have the organizations and, people protesting, and then when the night fall, you have the agitators with bear spray, you have agitators with smoke bombs, you have the agitators with Molotov cocktails. Been individuals arrested with Molotov cocktails. They breaking up rocks with hammers and throwing rocks at the LAPD and the sheriffs, and not peaceful. The main objective to law enforcement on any level is life and property. Life and property. So when you look at what's really going on and you see, professional grade fireworks being shot at law enforcement officers, and you see that's life. So the job of law enforcement, the job of the government from a state and federal perspective, is to protect life and property. And the issue that's going on here in LA, the federal prison, the federal jail, or the federal housing, for federal inmates, is downtown Los Angeles. And that is the epicenter of the LA. I can't say riots because I've been around so many riots. I actually participated in the 92 riot. So a riot is citywide. This particular situation is right there on, in Pacific area by the federal building. Okay. And I believe that's Alameda, First Street, Temple, that particular area. And they got it pretty much right there. That's the epicenter. Okay. And if you last night, the BET Awards was at the Peacock. Okay. Which used to Nokia, the Microsoft Center or Arena, right there in LA Live, went unhinged. And you think about it. The president of the United States summons the National Guard, and they got the Marines on the way. Okay. And if the president, follow the Insurrection Act, they will be able to allow the military, which in terms of our top dogs, to operate as law enforcement officers. That has not happened as of yet, but we're going to talk about proactive versus reactive. So from a proactive perspective, if you are watching television, if you turn on CNN and Fox News and see this particular incident, it's not citywide, but this particular incident, and as the president of the United States, you're not under his watch. Okay, because I'm going to tie the trickle down theorem into what we're talking about, because how can the nation thrive? How can the world, works itself to the middle class, and the middle class work itself up to the wealthy? How can we continue to grow and thrive if we continue to tear down every, odd years or every decade? So think about it, because right now, this is a tear down attempt that was actually blocked by the federal government and under the leadership of President Trump. I'm not giving Trump any credit, but I'll let you know, we've been through this with COVID. Trump was the president during COVID. You saw the riots, you saw the teardowns, you saw the lightening, lightening up of criminal. If you steal anything less than $1,000, you can't be prosecuted. Light sentences, no felonies, misdemeanors. Gascon, the district attorney in Southern California, was very light on crime, and the Democratic Party as a whole was a part of the tearing down of the government after we had got so much growth. COVID situation, George Floyd, that was a tear down. So now, being proactive, we're not going to tear down any major city, because LA is being looked at as the litmus test for the rest of the nation. Because if you understand what happened with Rodney King and the 92 riots and all of that, it all started in that same particular area that they're in now, off Alameda and Temple, by the downtown, by the mall. But this particular situation is right up the street at the federal building, in which the federal National Guard was pulled in to pretty much protect the property. And I watched an interview with the mayor. Basically had no clue that the National Guard was being deployed. And then when asked on record, she basically said, you know, what are they doing here? They're escalating and exacerbating the situation. It's literally impossible. How can you exacerbate the situation by having additional law enforcement officers be a part of it? Think about it. Think about it. So when she went on record and said, doing anything, they're guarding buildings in downtown LA and they're guarding buildings in Westwood. Okay. Now the situation at the federal building, okay, or the federal prison downtown LA, the COs, the correctional officers, was on high alert. So they had to put on their tackle gear. They had to shut down or lock down the federal prison and then pretty much protect the property. So how can they do their job? How protect the inmates inside without having some type of relief? They're human beings. Anytime you work over 12-hour shifts, I mean, your body gets fatigued. So it was a good situation because they was able to federal jail off of lockdown because they had assistance of the National Guard, federal law enforcement deployed there who pretty much take care of the perimeter. And if you don't know, federal law enforcement agencies, you know, they pretty much can do what they want to do. Okay, they shooting them with rubber bullets. Okay, if they need to clear out an intersection, they clearing it out with force. I saw a federal agent on a horse tell a cameraman to leave the area. The cameraman started taking pictures and he cracked that man upside the head with a wooden stick. You know, wood sticks are being passed out. And then actually the federal government, the United military, giving the sheriff department, you know, the rubber bullets. So they lighten them up with those rubber bullets because during the real riots, we've had riots. We had the 92 riots, and I'm gonna go ahead and say the George Floyd riots, meaning it got so far out of control, law enforcement couldn't do anything about it. So when you talk about being proactive, the Trump administration is not going to allow this to happen. Okay, not under his watch. The data's there. So now that the governor of California, which is Gavin Newsom, the mayor of Los Angeles, the local mayor, has issue with the President Trump overreaching or overstepping his, you know, I would say their jurisdictions, meaning putting and deploying federal agents in which they did not request. But look at the data, the LAPD police chief during a conference, he made it so clear that on the third day of these civil unrest or these protests, it gets out of hand. And with addition of federal agencies has pretty much toned down or shut down what they were trying to do and to attempt to do. And the sad part about it is that the mayor either don't know or is 100% support of what's going on. Governor, either he don't know or he's 100% with the destruction. So think about it. Chaos keeps them in office. Chaos keeps them in a position of power. And this is why the trickle down has not worked for the masses. And I got to get to this point because the trickle down is a theorem. I'm sure I'm not the only one who thought about who have asked himself, any time did America has its economic booms? And America has had its economic booms. The number one is post-World War II economic boom. And it from 1945 to 1973. That is a very long time. And that's trickle down. That's trickle down. So I'm giving you examples for the trickle. The fact has been proven that the trickle down is a theory. And we, the people outside of this two-tier government, must work together to make sure that we ensure progress for everybody. This is why in this beautiful bill, we had to have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on overtime. Look at all the officers that's making all this overtime. Okay, and if we can get this bill passed, okay, in the House of Congress, then all the time of this, the deployments, the LA sheriffs, the fire department, all these individuals that's on high alert, that's working all this overtime, believe me, they get a chance to put this money in their bank if we can get this thing done. So this is why we got out of this two-tier government and work together as a working class coalition, because I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm a nonpartisan independent, and my job is to pretty much, moderate both sides, be the medium sides, and be willing to work with both sides to make sure that the people. This is our moment in history, and the reason trickle down does not work is because what we call the trap. We get caught up in the trap, and I will get to you. So the word, the trap, and I will get back to that. But the number one economic boom, the three greatest economic moments in American history, post World War II, which is economic boom. Why? Often called the golden age, this era saw a massive economic growth, rising wages, and expanding the middle class. And I'm gonna say this again. Often called the golden age of capitalism, this saw massive economic growth, rising wages, and expanded the middle class. This is what we want to do right now. Okay, but it took a world war for these things to be implemented, and this time around, we're going to use a world war. We're going to pretty much organize as nonpartisan independents and make sure that the working class and the silent majority speaks. And during the Trump administration, it's all about us. It's not about Main Street, Wall Street. It's Main Street this time. Okay, and then the number two was back all the way back. And it was short-lived from 1933 to 1939. And that was the New Deal social safety back in the day. And why was that significant? In response to the Great Depression, you're starting to see, the pattern, because post-World War II, and this one here is in Great Depression, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal created Social Security, unemployment insurance, and public works program in which we still utilize them today. Think about that. And the broad impact, hear me out. And I'm destroying the theory of trickle down, and it is a theorem. It works. Okay. Now, the broad impact drastically reduced poverty and economic despair during the Great Depression. Think about it. Do we not want to drastically reduce poverty and economic despair right now today? And we don't need no depression to do it, and we don't need no world war to do it. We just need to stand as individuals and come together as people and line up on the side. Okay, because he didn't come to change the scribe or the Pharisees. He came to fulfill. So our job is to fulfill. And then the third greatest economic, and this is modern history. Okay, and this is what I say, trickle down works. The technology and internet boom of the 1990s. The explosion of the internet and tech industries drove massive economic expansion. We are right here out of these three events. We are right here on the cups of something being great, on the cups of being something beautiful. And we need to do this right now. We cannot get caught up in this rhetoric. We can't get caught up in this deportation or these distractions. We're not going to tear it down. This is why the Trump administration has deployed the National Guard. They're bringing the Marines in, because it's not going to happen. Because that is why trickle down has not been proven as to a theorem until today, because now we know, we got the data to prove it. Okay. The third one is the technology and internet boom of the 1990s. The explosion of internet and tech industries drove massive economic expansion. Unemployment fell to record lows. Inflation was low, and real wages began to rise after stagnation in the 70s and 80s. So we want things to grow because of the stagnation post-COVID and what we got going on. So we got to be honest with ourselves. What are we doing? We got to be honest with ourselves. It's time to come together. It's not about Republicans, not about Democrats. It's not about Trump. It's not about Elon. It's not about none of these people. Because if you think about it, we're dawning on the Civil War, because when you have the government not working with state and local governments, this is what we call an opposition. Because what I would have done if I was the mayor or the governor, I would pretty much call an emergency meeting, go to the White House, and work with the president to make sure that I know the plan, that I'm not left in the dark. But now, since they have aligned themselves with the opposition party, the party of resistance, and they call it the panic Democrats, the panics. Think about this. We got to understand, we cannot let our elected officials block our blessing. Okay, they're slamming the doors in our career. Maxine Waters attempted to get into the into the federal jail. They slammed the door in her face. She wanted to use her congressional power and went to reach for the door. They slammed the door in her face. So they're not getting respect. So we got the Constitution, and we the people must align ourselves as nonpartisan independents and do the work in the will of the people, specifically for the working class and the middle class. The working class and middle class is the same thing, but not benefit from what's going on in the world, because when the cut is over, they create chaos like they're attempting to do right now. So this is a chess game, and pretty much the Trump administration blocked their plan, their teardown plan. Only reason and the only way the Democratic Party from historical moments can expand itself is through chaos, through famine, through poverty, through immigration, through lawlessness. So if we stop these things, then they pretty much don't even have a job. So this is why one of the wings of the two branches of government got to get cut off. And right now, the Democrats is looking real bad right now. I'm just calling it like I see it. I'm just calling it like I see it. Okay, because when you have state and local governments in opposition of the federal governments in which their assistance come from, that's a problem. That's a problem. The federal government, I can understand why they're cutting the grants, they're cutting the spending, they're cutting departments, because the Democratic Party is ran and controlled by individual entities that we don't see. Now, and I sat back and I watched a few videos of people of Latin descent who are out there protesting peacefully because of the LA raids, on jobs and members getting deported, and it's pretty much spin. When I say spin, meaning that I saw a news station and I sat back and my heart was troubled. They sat back and they said, this is okay. These ICE agents have deported a 4 and a 5-year-old. And I sat back and said, wait a minute, why would ICE deport a 4 and a 5-year-old? And I thought to myself, and I turned to an outlet that was actually talking about the same story. And pretty much 4 and 5-year-old mother got deported, and the mother took her children with her. And I said, wow, they pretty much had me thinking that they just was kidnapping 4 and 5-year-olds. But apparently the children, the siblings, went with their parent. Okay, so wherever they migrated from, they're going to go back as. But sometimes you got to pick and choose. And this is literally not our battle, not to be disrespectful, but you can see the absence of the LGBTQ community. You can see the absence of the ACLU. You can see the absence of the SAIC. You can see the absence of the Urban League, Black Lives Matters, and all of that. They don't have help, no assistance. And the question is, does Latino lives matters? Because nobody's stepping up for them. When I look and I see maybe 1 or 2 rainbow flags. That's it. But for the most part, I'm seeing flag being flown. Okay. And pretty much in the particular area, downtown Los Angeles, where they're protesting, historically, this is where it all kicks off nationwide. But the president administration is not going to let that happen. And we, the American people, cannot support this, because this is the teardown. This is the teardown. When I say the teardown, this is the teardown to where we have to start all over. All the growth that we got, all the momentum that we got. We got to build, some tips, no tax, no overtime, Social Security being implemented. We're trying to get different programs and grants and all types of things. But when you have the teardown, money is being spent to rebuild. So the cup can't run it over. So this is one of the blockages of the trickle down theory as to why it's been a theory up until this point. But right now, a theorem, and I'm proving you this fact. So in modern history, close the door in the chapter on forever for the trickle down when they say it never works. That it never works because of times like this, because of famine, because of the teardowns, because of poverty. This is what, but it actually works for the individuals who participate. And I'm telling you right now, it's time for us to participate, because when I completed the research, I just gave you the greatest economic booms, and now I'm going to break it down for the greatest economic moments in modern history. In modern history, and the number one is the Earned Income Tax Credit. Okay, in 1986, although Reagan is often associated with trickle-down economics, I'm gonna say this again. Reagan is often associated with trickle-down economics but he drastically expanded the Earned Income Tax Credit for low and moderate income working families, meaning he implemented bills and laws and tax loopholes for the working class. And saying, if we could get not the Trump administration, but the joint, basically the divided House of Congress to help out with these tax implementations for the working class, it will work. Meaning the no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security enhancements will the working class and retired individuals who work their whole lives. Okay, the number one recent history gain when it comes, trickle down is the Earned Income Tax Credit expansion from the Reagan era. And basically, it drastically expanded a tax credit for low income working families. Think about it. And that 1986, here we go again, reform. This is where we are. For trickle down to work, it has to be tax reform for the working class, okay? Each earners, okay? Because the 1986 Tax Reform Act simplified tax code and increased the Earned Income Tax Credit, effectively putting more money in the pockets of the working class families. And I'm sure everybody could use some more money. So this is what I'm saying. Trickle down is not a theory anymore. It's a proven theorem. And I'm breaking it down to you right now. That was number one. Number two, the late 1990s economic boom. I'm sure a lot of y'all didn't even know we ever had an economic boom, because you so brainwashed. Trickle down doesn't work because they want you to stay on your plantation, stay broke, busted, and disgusted. So number two, the 1990s economic booms under Bill Clinton, but rooted in Bush-Reagan regulation. What happened? Under Clinton, okay, with policy momentum, Reagan and Bush era deregulation and trade liberalization, that's a tongue twister right there, liberalization, the United States experienced the strongest sustained economic expansion in decades. Wow. I need y'all to stick with me. Okay, if you're on the opposition, you need to listen. Whether you agree or disagree, this is information. Okay, because the late 1990s economic boom under Bill Clinton, but rooted in the Bush and Reagan regulations, okay, the United States sustained the strongest expansion. Check this out. Unemployment dropped below 4%. Wages rose and black unemployment reached historic lows. Meaning, if you create jobs, this is what I'm saying. We have to create jobs. And then there's a flip side to every coin, because I know a lot of these manufacturers and these companies that's been hiring illegal immigrants, I know they're going to be looking for Social Security holders, for people that was born in, because they lost a large group of their undocumented workers. So under Bill Clinton, black unemployment reached historic lows. Think about that. And the impact on black poverty fell significantly. Think about it. In 2000, black unemployment dropped to around 7%, its lowest of all time. Think about that. So when you say trickle down doesn't work, wages grew across the board, including for lower income workers. So if you improve the lower income workers, things change. Home ownership and small business growth increase communities. Trickle down does work. Poverty significantly fell. Black unemployment dropped to around 7%, of the lowest of all time. It is what it is. And that was under the bill. So trickle down has been proven to work for the working class. It does not work for the broke, busted, and disgusted. It does not work for the ones that's, I wouldn't say lazy, but the ones that's, taking advantage of the system with the SNAP and the food stamps and, able-bodied worker that's making a decision just to scam the system. No, it don't work for you. But for the individuals that's trying to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, trickle down works. So miss me on it doesn't work. It never worked for you. It never worked for the mass because of the teardowns, because of the rioting, because of COVID-19, because of wars and things of that nature. But following those significant incidences, this thing grows. And we just came out of COVID. So we're not going to tear this down. Okay, we're going to get a good 4-year run under this administration who's proven to be proactive instead of reactive, because there was a situation about to transpire and we had intelligence on these situations about to transpire. And we decided to deploy the National Guard, to deploy the Marines to make sure it doesn't get out of hand. And then local and state government says, oh, just exacerbated the situation. I mean, come on, man. The more law enforcement officers you have, the better. Period. That's just a fact. So Governor Newsom, who's termed out, and him, he's going head to head with Trump. I guess he saw how Elon started trending. So he did an interview and now he's trending as the opposition of the federal government. And now you see why, sanctuary cities and sanctuary states are much in trouble right now. Okay, so the last theory, which turns this theory into a theorem in terms of the trickle down work. And I just proved to you on 7 different occasions how the trickle down work. Okay, and the third one right now is Obama era recovery and the Affordable Care Act. Remember, Obama bailed out the banks. Obama inherited, some bad things from Bush. Okay, but he bailed the banks out. But the reason trickle down worked in the opposition of those who wasn't prepared, the foreclosure, the people were losing their homes because of that were put into play. I'm saying the home loans and all of that. So when Obama came into effect, instead of taking care of the people, okay, that was in trouble, he took care. And that was, one of those situations. But the trickle down did work for the individuals that was doing what they was doing. So Obama era Recovery and Affordable Care Act from 2009 to 16. Now, Obama inherited a great recession through a combination of spending, auto industry bailouts, and financial reform. The U.S. recovered. The Affordable Care Act passed in 2010 expanded healthcare to millions. The impact on Black Americans and the working class. Black unemployment peaked at over 16% in 2010, but creation of jobs. Trickle down works with jobs, because when the rich and wealthy do well, they create situations for everybody else to eat. So under this trickle down theory, which is a theorem, Black unemployment was at a 16% high in 2010, but it fell to around 7.5% by 2016. That's trickling down. That's trickling down. Just think about that. Just think about that. That is real. So we can debate about it. Not no more though, because the trickle down does work. We just got to understand the trap. And I told you to put that down, because the trap is, back when the Reagan era was busy and people were, the trickle down was working, the trap was crack. And then the trap created a criminal element. It created, mass confusion and mass comes to, turf wars and neighborhoods and all of that. And it started working again under Bill Clinton. But 3 strikes and you out. Think about that. Knocked us down again. We in a position right now to do what we got to do. Under the first administration, we had a global pandemic. Think about it. Shut everything down. We was moving direction. So right now, they just trying to come up with something. Trying to create it again to tear it down. But the people are not going to let that happen. It is what it is. And somebody put in the comments, we need Snoop Dogg for president. And I'll be trying to be a Snoop Dogg's cabinet if that happened. So the trickle down is real, but you cannot, pick a side no more. I saw somebody put a comment in one of my and said, oh, as a black man, you got to pick a side. No, I don't have to do nothing. I don't believe in the lesser of two evils. That was a trick from the devil, because the lesser of the two evils simply means we rather deal with the devil we know. And the devil the black man knows is the Democratic Party. And that's all he knows, because the devil of the Democrats, put us in a trick bag and pretty much says, okay, if you want civil rights, then you got to join our movement. And if you join our movement, you're going to lose your freedom, and you're going to speak for us. So this is why Karen Bass is in the dark or down with it, because I can't believe that you could come into the downtown area, just blocks from City Hall, and the city no clue and don't know what's going on. That hurts my heart. That hurts my heart. If she don't know, that's not fair. You would at least have to call the mayor's office or alert her. But the federal government is not working in conjunction with state and local. Having Newsom, he is on the opposition side of the sitting president of the United States. You think that you're going to get your government funding if you're in cahoots? Why do you think that, Doge under Elon Musk has pretty much, destroyed a lot of the programs that the states were benefiting from? Individuals personally, that worked with some nonprofits, and, their grants got and they pretty much had to they gave them a call and just laid them off. That's what happens when you don't work with the president of the United States. You got to learn how to play the game, because if I was the governor of the state of California, I would have called a emergency meeting at the White House. I would have sat there with the president, had a conversation at the press conference, and that press conference would have went a little something like this. Myself and the president sat down and had an educated conversation. Okay, we're hook, line, and sinker on, what the plan is moving forward. I support the president, and we're going to make sure that we work with the American people to make this country great again. Game recognized game. You keep your friends close, but your enemies yet closer. So if you are in the dark, like the mayor of Los Angeles, if you are in the dark and not in the loop, like the state and local government officials, if you're not hook, line, and sinker with the federal government, then you are on the opposition side. No difference than the Dixiecratic Democratic South that wanted to preserve slavery during Civil War times. So now I can understand why the president will be proactive and pretty much deploy federal agents as well as the National Guard and sending in because of the intelligence that they have. You have to understand that the Department of Defense, FBI, CIA is pretty much have, confidential informants inside of these entities and these nations. So therefore they can push that information up. And then when the government this intelligence, then that's the rhyme or reason as to why they're deploying federal officials to the city of Los Angeles, because Los Angeles is the center. What starts out in Los Angeles, the rest of the United States, we dictate that, because the Rodney King riots kicked off riots all across the nation. Okay. When George Floyd, that situation happened and they started rioting and looting downtown LA, Beverly Hills, Melrose, Fairfax District, man, it just popped off. But now, being proactive versus reactive, it is sure that this doesn't happen. And the benefit of this, the beneficial people, the people who will benefit most from stopping this mass chaos, is the working class and the middle class. Because if we can tear down, that means you grow from where you are right now. Just think COVID pushed you back. Think of the individuals that just got that dream job, but, due to the COVID mandates, shut everything down. Think about that. Just think about the individuals during the Reagan era, where, people are thriving and starting to have an economic boom. And then you got a dope dealer in the neighborhood that's making hundreds of thousands, if not dollars on a weekly basis. You're going to find yourself caught up. That's the trap is. And then that next decade, 3 strikes and you out. So they was arresting and incarcerating drug addicts addicted to a drug or a illegal substance that was transported and brought into this nation, not by us, but by the federal government. Think about it. So now we know it's a play, because chaos keeps the Democrats in office. Peace does not keep the Democrats in office. And then you can see that Trump and Elon have their little issues, but Elon, he had to understand that, regardless if you do and all that, we're going to make sure we look out for the American people. So he took the hit. And then they kind of went viral last week, Trump and Elon going back and forth. But this week, Gavin Newsom wants to, go head up with the president, talking about, put me up, put me in, he thinks he's a tough guy and all of that tough talk. But at the end of the day, do your job. Go down to the White House and work for the constituents, work for the individuals who put you guys in office, work for the average American. And this is why we have to separate ourselves from this two-party system. And it's sad that the mayor does not have the intelligence, or the mayor does not know what's going on in her own backyard. That's not fair, because life and property is to be protected. And when you can fireworks at law enforcement officers, that's life. And then the federal buildings that the National Guard is protecting, that's allowing the federal employer jobs. The prison, the jail was on lockdown. Now they get to do what they need to do. Okay, so it is what it is. And if you don't really believe or understand about these protests, these are paid protesters. These are agitators. Okay, and if you do not know me personally, I did a little time as a Department of Defense contractor. Okay. And on a daily basis, we did what we called tag up briefings. And on several during these tag up briefings, they pretty much briefed us on that there's to be a planned protest. They put it on the screen. They pretty much have the logistics of it, the transportation, how they're going to be shipped in, their protest route and their exit. And then we also had undercover individuals inside getting intelligence to let us know and to alert us who the major players are in this operation. So if I could be privy to situations like this on a private contractor level, just imagine the elevation that it is on the federal government level. And for the federal government to not be in conjunction with the local and state government, meaning city and state, then that's a problem. This is why, there can't be a two-tier government. This is why there can't be, tilling tribes. This is why we cannot choose a side, because the trickle down has to trickle down to the working class. Have anybody have heard the notion or the biblical, my cup runneth over? Okay, see, runneth over. That means everybody eats. Everybody, is prospering. And either you're in the cup or you on the saucer. So what I'm saying is, when we all do well. But we got to understand the state and local governments, they make the determining factors, and they allow things to take place and transpire to block the blessings of the working class. Because when they tear down the city, burn down the city, who gets the resources? Mr. Minglewood told me that during the security detail. He said politics is about the money, period. It's about the distribution of funding. So if we have torn down this city this past weekend, if we allow these riots to these public disturbances to become riots and to be citywide, then the government is going to allot resources to local and state governments, and they're going to make the decision as to where the money goes. This is why the trickle down theory have never worked up until this point. Now we know we can't participate in tearing down our cities. We can't participate in this divided house, okay? Because if we're divided, a house divided cannot stand. It's impossible. So this is why the working class has, just by happenstance, decided to go independent and to let the Democrats do what they're doing. Because the Democratic elected officials, their careers are done. They are pretty much pawns on the chessboard of a losing group of people who not be successful this time around. But when you're dealing with, powers, principality, evildoers, they're going to make a play no matter what, because all press is good press. They burn the candle from both sides. They're written the 1% to continue to be prosperous in the midst of, and to prove that fact, now I can see the Democratic side, speaking on Elon Musk from a positive light. I've heard Chuck Schumer, Kim Jeffries, I agree with Elon because he's the richest man and you want him on your side now? Okay, no, the joke's on you. Okay, because he's speaking independence as if they're, looking and watching us. The former press secretary, okay, she came out with a book called Independent. Okay, how can you be the Joe Biden's press secretary and then you come out with a book Independent? Because if you look at the data, if you look at the next move, if you throw these things in this AI, this is why a Better Black America, this is why my platforms are starting to grow, is because we looked at this thing from a prophetic perspective and tried to call it out in 2016. So now the momentum is freedom and liberation through our independence. So this is why the black race in leadership of the black man, okay, is not a Democrat anymore. We're not a Republican. Okay, we're not a scribe or Pharisees. We're not here to change the laws. We're here to participate and to work with anybody that can help the working middle class, because this is where we are right now. Because the history that I shared with you, they're going to say back in 2024, there was a independent revolutionary type movement outside of the two-party system, and the West and Black American, the working class, middle class worked together as a coalition to ensure that under the Trump administration, that laws, tax reforms, laws and bills and legislation get into play that's beneficial solely for the, because trickle down has become a theorem. It's no longer a theory. Okay, because when they try to make us included back in the Civil Rights Acts, think about that. That was 6 years ago. But instead of celebrating 60 years of empowerment, 60 years of black entrepreneurship, 60 years of black growth and gain, we celebrated 60 years of pride. Because Civil Rights Acts, they added, the LGBTQ, they added Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger's group, the Black Eugenists, Mother of Black Genocide, the Women's Live organization, the Q movement, which includes white male Caucasians who happen to, be gay, but they still white. And then they allowed black individuals to participate, but these black individuals are pretty much faced because they work for the check writers. And Kamala Harris, she pretty much confirmed the fact. Because when she met with us, with our group, and we were talking to her, she said, gentlemen, my hands are tied. You got voters and you got check writers, and we got to just do what the check writers say. I'm just being told. And she kept it a buck with us. Okay. And this is when we made the decision to, to seek our independence, freedom, and our liberation outside of vote. Because anybody that's an elected official, they pretty much work for their donors. They work for, big pharma. Okay, they working for the LGBTQ, elemental P. They working for organizations that's pretty much putting things in play to continue to fund operations in their organizations. And that's a fact. So now that we are dawning on an era, and we're stepping out and showing our identity, this is an opportunity, and this is this is our evidence that the individuals and the entities that were doing bad things, the lynchings back in the 60s, these individuals all have expired. We're dealing with their children, okay? And during these riots here in LA, the job is to take the masks off, show their faces. And these are the descendants of Democratic, Dixiecratic South. These are the descendants of the most racist people. These are the descendants, these white individuals, these white men that participate in these riots and these agitators and these professional, what you would say, professional protesters. These are the children of some very, very disturbed, disruptive, racist people. Their grandparents went to public. Their grandparents wore hoods, okay, as the KKK. So what's the difference of them pulling up, and we've seen them get out of trucks with their masks on? What's the difference between a hood and a mask? And this is why the orders are take the mask off the face, to show them people in plain sight, to embarrass them in the public forum. And they're doing this, and they're discouraging the individuals to continue what they're doing, because today's supposed to be day 4 or day 5. But you got the Marines stepping up. So we're going to see, if Trump deploying the National Guard and the Marines help, and which I'm gonna say it's already helping, because when the sun go down, they clearing these blocks. They with rubber bullets. They're throwing, the smoke, the gas, and all of that. But this is the police and local authorities versus an entity, that's not good. Of the channel that I was watching with these LA, they're not riots yet, protests, because riots are citywide. I saw individuals, they pulled up in a truck and they started passing out gas masks. And on the news outlet that I was looking at, they looked it up, and they said these gas masks are going from anywhere between $100 and $300, and they passing them out. We've counted over 20 passed out. Who purchased those? What organization or operation funding the teardown? Okay, what organization or operations is funding the teardown? So this is why we as individuals, we got to really just step out of this and understand what it is, because the teardown is to block the blessings of the working class. We can't participate. You got to choose your battles. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You got to choose your battles, because like I said, I don't rainbow flag out there. And if I do, it's a homeless individual that just has to come outside and wants some water and some food. Okay. I don't see the ACLU out there. I don't see the Women's Live organizations out there. I don't see Black Matters out there. I don't see the Urban League. Okay. I see the NAACP. So literally, this is our moment. So now that we're not focusing on the chaos and the teardown and blessing, now let's focus and get motivated and work on legislation that's just for the working class. And it's like I said, Trump is just, so get past it, you trunk deranged syndrome and all of that. That is just human being. But no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Okay, Social Security enhancements. Okay, you can write off your car loan interest. And what else do we want? We're seeking, and not an abolish, seeking, in terms of tax exemption for wage earners earning less than $200,000. That's good enough. If we could get those into that bill, then that's specifically for the working class. And if you did not know, Elon Musk is the richest man on the planet, lost $219 in one day with the Trump tariffs and what's going on in the world. So his rich friends are taking hits. But when you're that on to get it back somehow, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. But it's time for the working class. So we can't participate in the teardown, because the teardown, give funds to the city. The teardown give funds to the state. We want to let law enforcement handle this. Let Donald Trump do what he's doing. Let the military come and pretty much nip bud, so there won't be no nationwide or worldwide protest over deportation of human beings that were brought into this country illegally. This is a country of laws. We will. Okay. So at the end of the day, it's over. And somebody put in race. That's all I hear, because race has not been handled. Okay. Race we could change the temperature and stop talking about race when it's equality for all. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's the only way we can end the race conversation, because up until then, it is what it is. And I talked about the 94 crime bill, an individual about saying that, that wasn't just for black people. Hillary Clinton went on record and said that Hillary Clinton said black men are super predators and they need to be brought to heel while promoting that bill. That's for the black community. And we were brought to heel and we were put in the jails. And 6 out of every 10 black men have seen city or state prisons, city jails or state prisons. 6 out of 10. That means we got 10 individuals in the building. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of y'all gonna be behind bars. And that happened because of the 94 crime bill, specifically to destroy the black community, and anybody else that got caught up was collateral damage. And that is what it is. And then Joe Biden, the one who supposedly, is a catalyst in the Senate, he says these are not regular humans. These are super predators. Okay. I don't care about, rehabilitation. They need to be in jail. Joe Biden said before they kill you, me, your son, your daughter, to be behind bars. And they that he was talking about and the super predators that need brought to heel was black men in the black community, because the black community, black men was locked up from a disproportionate rate higher than any other ethnicity, period. It's mass incarceration. And if you look at the Constitution, the 13th Amendment says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude unless criminalized. So what they do is criminalize a black person. That means modern day slavery is in full effect. And this is why the long game under the Trump administration, wink, wink, we're seeking a constitutional amendment to take the criminalization clause off the Constitution and amend the 13th Amendment and ratify the 13th Amendment and bring it in as the 28th Amendment with the criminalization clause removed. This is how we win. This is how the working class wins. This is how we get talking about race, because race matters. If you put a G in front of race, that's our grace. Because when you talk about race, you specifically talking about a group of individuals who were stolen from their land, dwelling in a foreign land, cast slaves, and was duly oppressed for over 400 years. The word of God says, I will punish the oppressor after that, and they shall come out. And this is us outside of the Republican and Democratic Party, Great Wealth Street. Not left, not right, straight. Okay? We're not to the left, we're not to the right, we're straight way. Oh, this is our wealth. And wealth does not always come from a monetary perspective, because health is wealth. Okay? But this is our moment in history, and we're not going to be hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, running them behind some deportation of illegal immigrants who don't have no love for us anyway. No love. The Latino community is the worst community when it comes to, black disenfranchisement. Okay, we love you. They love you when you give them food. They love you when you allow them resources and benefits in the community. But for the most part, the Latinos are the most tribal group. They look out for their own. They call us mayates and go back to Africa. And we supposed to go out there and support your protests? Nah, I don't think so. You guys are on your own. Okay. And that's the message the ACP is sending. That's the message the ACLU is sending. That's the message Southern Christian Leadership is sending. That's the message the Urban League is sending. That's the message Planned Parenthood is sending. That's the message the LGBTQ LME Society is sending. Okay? You guys are on your own. Okay? And in this point, Latino lives don't matter that much when it comes to deportation because of the illegal migration. Because look at the Medicaid system. The Medicaid system went bankrupt because 10 million illegal immigrants have been benefiting from the system. And now Gavin Newsom is mad at Trump because Trump won't bail them out. He was expecting Trump to open up some more funding, so they can pretty much move around. So they basically said, instead of giving you more funding, let's go ahead and deport these illegal migrants who are benefiting from our Medicaid system. Because when you sign up for Medicare and Medicaid, they send a check in the mail or your card in the mail, your EPT card in the mail. You have to have a physical address. And those are the physical addresses they pulling up on. You got to put your name in there. Okay. You got to prove that you are somebody, whether you legal or illegal. So they have a list. If you did not know, the organization or the corporation that they pretty much ran in on, down the street from the mayor's, down the street from, they had the intelligence that the management was hiring illegal immigrants knowingly, hiring them. And this is why they arrested management, and this is why they arrested 49 employees. The feds did. Okay. But the feds need to stick around, because the feds start the mess, and then they get up out of there, and then LAPD and sheriffs got to take the rocks and the fireworks, but the feds roll up in there. They don't play. I've seen them crack people up inside the head, shoot them with rubber bullets, physically move them out the way. Feds are different, but be honest with ourselves. This country, one nation under God, and it has to work for everybody. Okay. Like I said, I got love in my heart, but I know that individuals could care less about what I go through. Okay. And what my people do. So sometime me, sometime you, and this is the federal government taking a stance in proving that they want to make America great again. Okay. And I got to issue it again, because it's past tense, and past people pretty much got a bad track record. But historically, a large volume of black people have seeped through the cracks and have become successful in these times. So what I'm saying is, instead of burning down the city, instead of, doing things that's going to, transfer or distribute the funds in areas. So let's go ahead and practice peace, because I don't have a protest bone in my body, but I have, a bone in my body that wants to correct the situation, because we don't need more problems. We need solutions. We need to be problem